Welcome back to the Autry Benton Show. Today we got a true treat, and we got two public servants with us today. We got our current Attorney General, Alan Wilson, with us, and Senator Mike Reichenbach from Florence with us. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Reach over. Thank y'all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Wow, y'all got something going on right now. Y'all are pretty busy and all over the state.
Between the two of us, I think we're like in a combined 4 or 5 counties a day.
Yep.
Different counties every day of the week. So I mean, we are going. We're turning and burning. It's been a lot of fun though. It's been a fast 2.5 months since we've announced Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got your current roles to continue as well.
I still have a day job.
Day job.
And then
Oh,
face that. Well, you know what I tell people is I have a day job. Still the Attorney General. Got to manage that office. Of course, I got a great team in the office doing it. But in addition to that, I'm in the National Guard. So I still have those National Guard obligations.
Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for saying that. And then I hear from time to time my family likes to see me. So I got a wife, Jennifer. We have a 17-year-old son, Michael, and a 16-year-old daughter, Anna Grace. And obviously, they're enjoying this ride as much as we are.
Yeah, good. Senator, what's your family think about this new season of life you're in now?
Oh my goodness, it is. It's refreshing to connect with people across the state. I mean, we're generally PD folks, being from Florence, and we love the listeners there who've seen our kids grow up through the dealerships in Florence. But to be in Coney County one day and Aiken the next and Jasper the next, to just hear what's going on with the state of South Carolina. Sharice and I are invigorated by it. So we're empty nesters. So when you say the family, the kids are doing their own life. Now they're in their 20s. But Sharice and I get a chance to do it together. And it's wonderful to just see the fabric of what is South Carolina.
All right. It's a great state, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
Oh, it's amazing. Like last night, I was at an event with about 300 or 400 law enforcement folks at a barbecue up in Abbeville, and he was in Dillon County. And we call into each other's events and talk on the speakerphone, so we're able to hit 2 counties at one time, and the people are so grateful, and I met so many wonderful people along the way. And earlier today, we were in this area going to local businesses and meeting with folks and shaking hands and just the retail stuff and letting people ask us questions. It's been a real fun trip for us.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm going to step back in time a little bit, get to know more about early life. So, General, we'll start with you first. Tell me where you grew up and growing up and where you got started.
Well, so I spent most of my life in Lexington, South Carolina, which is about 20 minutes from downtown Columbia. My mom was from Florence, and so we spent a lot of our time in the PD because my grandmother lived there. All of our holidays were there, a lot of family from the PD, but I went to middle school and high school in the Lexington area. Went to Francis Marion University undergrad.
Did you really?
Yeah. So
PD roots.
So I got some PD. Swamp Fox. Yeah, Funky Monkey. So I have a lot of roots in this region of the state, but I joined the National Guard right out of college. I was a second lieutenant, and coming up into my 30th year in uniform, currently a colonel. Served a combat tour in Iraq in 2004 and 2005. But if you want to go back to my origin story, just kind of in a nutshell, my mom was married to an active duty military guy who had served a combat tour in Vietnam, came home, met her, they married, had me. 2 years after I was born, he was tragically killed in a helicopter accident in the Army. Yeah, so it was in 1975 when he was killed. My mom, comes back to the Columbia area, single mom, school teacher, raising a toddler. I was 2 at the time. And she reconnected with my adopted father, Joe Wilson, who adopted me when I was 4 years old. And they had 3 other sons. And they raised us, and we had an incredible family life growing up. I mean, we won the family lottery. I mean, every night my dad would come in and hear my prayers, and he would say things to me like, son, there are little boys out there that don't have a dad in their life. You were blessed to have 2 daddies that loved you with all their heart. I always talked about my biological father, never let me forget him and where I came from. The way that he and my mom raised us boys was that all 4 of us ended up becoming Eagle Scouts. All 4 of us became commissioned officers in the military. All 4 of us served overseas. And that's just kind of how public service was drilled into us from a very young age and is still in us today.
Wow. Well, you've already answered the question I was going to ask you is where did the military to go in the military came from? So I guess from your father.
Well, I mean, look, my biological dad was in the Army. My adopted father was 30 years in the National Guard. All 3 sets of grandparents, from my biological father, my adopted father, and my mom, they were all served in World War II. My cousins served in the military. I got a cousin right now who's a brigadier general in the Pentagon. My 3 brothers served. So military service is really deep in our family.
Yeah.
And it's something that's one of the best decisions I ever made was to serve my country.
Well, thank you for your service again. Thank you for your family service. And remind me again, How old were you when your father passed away?
2.
2. I got you.
And I was 4 when my mom remarried.
Wow. Quite a story. So graduating, going service, tell me about the law. What pushed you towards the law?
Oh, so, I mean, I honestly, it was probably the impression my dad made on me, growing up. When I was after college, my first job after college was digging ditches for a construction crew. Not that knocked that college boy chip off my shoulder, but I eventually found a job. My dad and his law partners offered me a job running for them. And this is when I was trying to figure out, I was 23 years old, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And then I got a job working for the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, as an intelligence analyst.
Oh, wow.
It was through the Department of Defense, since I was a National Guard soldier. And I helped the DEA agents take down the drug dealers and the people, peddling that stuff. So I got a little taste of law enforcement in me, and then running for my dad's law firm, running errands for them, just got exposed to the law and said, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going to law school, graduated in 2002. And then my first job was with a judge, Circuit Judge Mark Westbrook. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was going to be a real estate attorney like my dad. My dad was a real estate attorney doing transactional law. He called it happy law. You're always dealing with people buying a home or selling a home, right? But when I clerked for Judge Westbrook, I remember sitting up there on the bench with him, and I was watching all these criminal trials. And all of a sudden, I just realized being a transactional lawyer is not my personality. I thought I was supposed to do it because my dad did it, but we're very different people. Mm-hmm. I decided I wanted to be a prosecutor. Mm-hmm. So the judge called the solicitor, said, hey, if you have an opening, my law clerk would like to come work for you. And when an opening opened up, the solicitor hired me, and I went to work. And I got to be a prosecutor, and I never looked back. It changed the trajectory of my life.
I got you. Well, good. Bring me up on your personal life. Where'd you meet your wife at?
Well, my wife, Jennifer, was a TV news reporter. Okay. She's from New Jersey, and she got her degree in Missouri, and then was working in Wilmington, and then moved to South Carolina in 2000. And there was a contest, South Carolina's Sexiest Bachelor, and I won. She was interviewing me. No, that's a lie.
Yeah, well, I was like,
I've never heard that one.
That was a lie. That is a lie. That was a self-promotion. No, we were out.
We need to get her version of that.
Right? If she's watching this, she is rolling her eyes right now. But no, the truth of the matter is, my dad had just been elected to Congress, and this is back in 2002, and we went to an election party for a lady who had won a city council race, and we had gone to give our best, and Jennifer was interviewing people there, and she interviewed me. I never made it off the editing room floor, but I never made it to TV, but she interviewed me that night, and we made pleasantries, and then a couple of months later, we met at another event. And I called out to her, said, hey, do you remember me? She's like, yeah, I remember you. We started talking. Yeah. I got her card, asked her to lunch. We went to lunch the next day, still at lunch.
That's great. That's great. And how many kids now?
We have 2 kids. On most days feels like 4. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. My son, Michael, is 17. He'll be 18 in a few weeks. He is going to be starting college as a freshman at the University of South Carolina in the fall. My daughter, Anna Grace, is 16, going on 36. And she's a rising junior in high school. And I got great kids. They make good grades. They're well behaved. They don't give me any trouble. I love them. That's great. That's great. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you. Senator, tell me about you. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a little small dot on a map, a little farm town, 2 stoplights in northwest Ohio.
Oh, wow.
Born and raised there. Origin story wasn't a traditional Norman Rockwell type of a situation. It would have been nice, but my biological mother was 14 when she got pregnant. Was given some tough choices, but carried me to term and put me in foster care. I was in foster care for a while, and I eventually was adopted by a family from that little farm town in Ohio. Oh, wow. And they adopted me, and look, my last name is Reichenbach, right? You probably and hard to figure out that that's very, very German. We pronounce it Reichenbach, as the name goes phonetically, but mom and dad and adopted me. My whole family was just fantastic because they taught me that even though I didn't look like them, I'm in a white German family in a small rural farm town, they taught me that I was no less a Reichenbach than my brother and my sister. Wow.
By the way, we have internal polling on the Black German community in South Carolina, and we're winning with 100% of the vote.
Not a lot of us out there, Black Germans.
You got that category.
100% in that community. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No. But yeah, they just taught me about faith and hard work and discipline. But more than anything, Autry, is that God's providence was real and His sovereignty was real, and that to be, and the reason I know my biological mother's story is when I was turned 18, she came and found me and told me her story, and she just wanted to know she made the right decision. But I'm so grateful for my origin story, because it's really made me who I am today, to just have such a tremendous sense of gratitude to serve my community, because I was given a chance at life from a young girl who's 14, and I didn't make great decisions at 14, certainly not an adult decision like that. But then to be raised by a mom and dad who said, you don't look like us, but you are our son.
Yeah. And Senator, if you could say, I'm glad your birth mother chose life and chose a great path. I mean, that's important. So that's awesome. Wow. So what was it like growing up there in that community?
I won't tell you that it was always easy. In an all-white town, an all-white school, in early 70s, trying to figure out identity wasn't easy. And that is part of my strength, is that mom and dad taught me it doesn't matter what names you might be called, or that you're struggling with your identity. Look, I don't look like them. My hair's a lot curlier, my skin's a lot darker, so that was not always easy in a town when you wanted to fit in. And being young, at least I found it, fitting in was so important. So to not always fit in wasn't easy, but it gives you a strength and a resilience and a real reliance on God, that He has a plan. And one day I'll ask Him when I'm in heaven, like, God, why was that my story? But I believe it's part of it is that in the Senate, I chair the Senate subcommittee on child welfare and the entire state joint committee on children, because I don't think there's anything more important than family and protecting family, and government doing all we can to provide a stable environment and the guardrails for a strong family.
Amen. That's great. So where'd you go? What was your next steps coming out of high school?
Yeah, mom and dad taught me that you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room, but you can outwork most people. So I was never the smartest person in the room, but I worked really hard and graduated top of my class and got an academic scholarship, got an accounting degree, then on to an MBA, did corporate finance all over the world. Been married now to Sharice, my bride, for 30 years in August. So
congratulations.
Thank you. It's another example of how God's providence is so fantastic. I met her in January, fell head over heels, got engaged in March, and married in August, and we haven't looked back.
That's great. That's great. So you went to the business world after college?
Right after college, went to the business world and did corporate finance and accounting and external audit work in companies, 2 Fortune 500 companies, and did quite well. We were very blessed. But you move about every 18 to 24 months when you're corporate. And the next move was going to be into Asia Pacific, port of China. And we decided in 2008, a really bad time to decide this, let's buy our first dealership. And that's what brought us to South Carolina. We bought the Ford dealership in Florence, and then the economy collapsed. Yay! So we know what it's like to be a small business owner and to lay awake at night and wonder, how do you make payroll? How do you employ people? And it wasn't just for us, it was for our 60 employees and their families. And that's why our heart is really for small businesses and for the folks who put it all on the line to employ their neighbors and their friends.
That's great. So did you know anything about Florence before you bought the dealership, or?
I had known it from the corporate world.
Right.
Just traveling through Florence and Myrtle Beach and some of the South Carolina audits we would do when I was corporate, but had no other affinity for it or even exposure for it. But when we were given a choice of Dallas, Texas to buy a dealership or Florence, South Carolina, and my wife and I flew to Florence, and we said, we feel called here. I really like to say that I've got 3 different adoptions in my life. I was adopted by mom and dad. I was adopted into the body of Christ when I gave my salvation, and we've been adopted into South Carolina, into Florence almost 20 years ago, and I'm grateful for that.
That's beautiful.
Now adopted to my ticket.
That's
there
right.
You go.
So
our
maybe
ticket.
4 adoptions.
Our ticket.
In general, you made a great choice.
I think so. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, that's great.
And I do want to say this, of all the campaigns running for governor, and other campaigns are going to make their decisions in due time, but we made our decision early, and we announced it early for several reasons, but mainly I knew he was the right guy. When I knew it, why wait? And secondly, I wanted everyone in the Republican primary where we are currently running to be able to vet him as much as they get to vet me, because if we're the nominee, and I believe we will be, I want them to be able to have a say in who the running, that they get to say on who the lieutenant governor is. I wanted them to see this. I'm glad we're doing this today, because they're getting to see the kind of man that I saw all those months ago that I was evaluating who I wanted to be my running mate, and I have not looked back since I made that decision.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. You told us about your wife. Got kids?
We do. We've got both 2 Gamecocks. daughter went to University of South Carolina, and our son is a senior at University of South Carolina, and he's following my footsteps as an accounting major, and our daughter works for a hospital in Columbia.
That's good. Well, thank you for sharing. Coming back to you, General. So, what was the next steps in the law, and how did you get into your next steps in your career?
Well, as I said earlier, I was going to be a real estate attorney, like my dad, and then clerking for the judge was kind of like a fork in the road of my life, and that really greatly impacted me to pursue prosecution. Fell in love with the courtroom, fell in love with the idea of helping people, prosecuting cases and seeing victims made whole, holding bad guys accountable when they do things. There was one particular case that I prosecuted when I then went to the Attorney General's office. I was a sex crimes prosecutor, especially primarily with young children. I had a case in which this young woman between the ages of 12 and 15 had been abused by this man, and by the time from 12 to 15 is when it occurred. At age 15 she disclosed, 17 she disclosed, 19 and went to trial. And at the end of the trial, he was convicted and sentenced to 18 years in prison. And as we were walking out of the courtroom, I saw her acting very emotional, and I asked her, I said, why are you upset? I thought this is what you wanted. And before I tell you what she said, because what she said changed me, it changed my life. It was a snapshot in time. The man who hurt her was not only a retired police officer, was her grandfather. And he would manipulate her during those years of abuse and saying, no one will believe you because I'm a cop and you're a kid, or all I need is one juror to have reasonable doubt. They'll take you away, you'll destroy the family. And it did destroy the family. But as we were walking out of the courthouse, she looked up at me and she said, Alan, I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm crying because I'm happy. For the first time in my life, I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor.
Wow.
And what I've said 1,000 times is that changed me. Like, I played a role with other people who were involved in that prosecution, but I played a role in giving a voice to a person who had no voice, empowering someone who had no power, and being a bridge from victimhood to survivorship. And I decided, having had combat experience and being in the military, and I love the challenges of leadership, and I love being a prosecutor. When the opportunity to run for Attorney General came open, when then Attorney General McMaster was leaving office to run for governor, I said, I want to throw my hat in the ring, and I did. And that is why I ran for Attorney General, because I wanted to do for those, on a case by case, I was serving victims, but I wanted to do it kind of globally for our state. And that was one of the reasons I ran for Attorney General. It's ultimately why I'm running for governor, is because I see a bigger stage and a bigger platform to do more good, like I had done case by case. And so that's really that clerking for that judge and changing my mind on going from real estate to prosecution really radically changed the direction of my life. But for that, I would have been a very different person today.
That's good. Well, thank you for sharing that. So our time is quickly going. We've got a lot to cover. So so tell me, what's the one thing or a couple of things serving for Attorney General for the state of South Carolina that you're proud of, that you just want to highlight real quickly?
Well, look, when I became Attorney General, we had no state human trafficking task force. Human trafficking is one of those plights on our state, on our nation, and the world that still exists today. It's a $200 billion a year industry. U.S. is the #1 destination. South Carolina sits between two of the top 20 human trafficking hubs. That's Atlanta and Charlotte. And Horry County is a major area for potential trafficking. It's one of those top counties. And it's a great county because it does report a lot, but there's a lot of tourism here. And when there's a lot of tourism, you see a lot of that trafficking activity. So we created the task force. The task force has grown exponentially over the last 13 years. In fact, we've become the gold standard in the country for how to combat human trafficking. I'm very proud of that. We have quadrupled the number of investigators and prosecutors going after online predators and pedophiles to try to protect kids. We've consolidated all the victim services in the state under the Office of the Attorney General. So all of the ombudsman, the training for all the victim services providers are now done by our agency. We've recovered some $2 billion in recoveries for the people of South Carolina. $2 billion with a B.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money for the people of South Carolina. We have defended our state from federal government overreach. I've probably been involved in several hundred legal actions against the Biden and Obama administrations. I've been able to defend President Trump in court numerous times, and his agenda in court, something I'm very proud of. I've been able to go out there and advocate for judicial reform, got some headway on it. We have a long way to go. Been able to advocate for domestic violence reform, driving under the influence laws to be reformed a little bit. So we've done a lot of good. There's so much more for us to do, but those are the things I'm really proud of as Attorney General.
Well, good. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And Senator, I'm kind of asking you these questions together. Times quickly is like, what pushed you towards serving in the South Carolina Senate and something you're proud of there, and why'd you say yes to to General when he gave you the call?
Yeah, great question. Coming from the business background, I had no intention of ever going into public office from the standpoint of a politician. Now, volunteering is something I love. I've been a 20-year sworn law enforcement officer. So I went to the academy, went into SLED as a state constable, and then for DNR as a game warden, a DLEO, because I have such a passion for service to the community from a law enforcement perspective, because there are those who would do us harm, and I felt like I should stand up and play my part. But when I started to talk to some legislators about some legislation involving small businesses, I realized that there are many legislators who don't understand business. The first few I talked with, when I would use the term P&L for a profit and loss statement, they said, well, what's that? And then a balance sheet. Well, explain how a balance sheet means. And I realized that, look, we love the fact that about 1/3 of all legislators are attorneys. So I got a lot of attorney friends, I got a lot of prosecutor friends. And
I'm not an attorney, I'm a prosecutor.
That's exactly right. So I like that, but 1/3 are attorneys. But who has the voice of the small business person? And that's why I really decided to run for office. Our businesses employ people that are able to give back to the community, and most job opportunities in South Carolina, about 75%, are small businesses. Who's going to take care and be an advocate for small businesses? So that's what made me run for the Senate. The reason I decided to run with Attorney General Alan Wilson is his Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force came to one of the committees that I currently chair, the Joint Committee on Children, and explained how AI-generated morphed images were being used by child exploitation criminals, who essentially were their defense was, well, it's not a real child. You don't have to like it because it's not a real child, so there's no actual victim. And what his Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force worked with our committee, and now I'm so pleased to say we got it passed and signed into law, is a bill that would say if it is a reasonable representation of a child, even if it's AI generated, it's still child exploitation. And that's an example of public policy being there to protect children. And the war against our families and against our children is real, Autry.
It absolutely is. And thank you both for your work on protecting families and children.
He puts families first. And when he explained that families come first, that's a ticket I could get on board with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you talking about the legislator. I think it is important to have legislators coming from different, points of life. I mean, because it represents our state.
That's right.
And so it's very much so. So you are running for governor of South Carolina. There's lots of topics we can talk about. You've already mentioned one that's very important to South Carolina is judicial reform. Can you tell me your thoughts on that and what you would like to do as governor on that issue?
So judicial selection reform is how I like to phrase it. Add the selection in there. The way we select judges is completely dominated by the legislative branch of government. And a government, what people at home need to recognize is a government is more responsible and more responsive to you when there's parity of power between the three branches. Right now, the executive branch has very little, if any, oversight over the judicial branch of government. The legislature overall controls how judges are selected, how they are elected, and how they are funded. I would like to bring that system where the governor has equal say into the nominating process of how judges get nominated and let the legislature up or down vote. Right now, the legislature controls how judges are nominated and how they are elected. That should be up, the nominating process should be up under the governor, completely up under the governor, and the legislature should retain the veto power over those nominees. Similar to the federal model, but we have a judicial merit selection system, and we can tweak it to make it more responsive. And the reason that's important is if you have judges that are releasing violent criminals or judges that are not following the rule of law or making bad decisions that affect businesses and communities, I'm not saying it happens a lot, but when it does happen, who do you go to hold accountable for the quality of those judges? You can go to your House member and senator and complain about it, but there's 168 other legislators that get to vote. There's only one governor. So if the governor's commission or the JMSC that's under the governor is nominating bad judges, then you can hold the governor accountable for that nomination process. So it gives more accountability to the people when the governor is at the table and the executive branch is at the table. And that is what I'm going to be pushing for the rest of this year, but also as governor.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And like you say, I think most South Carolinians want it. I know there's different versions of it, but anything's better than what we got now.
There's only two states that do it like us and Virginia.
Yeah. It's time for a change, for sure.
Yeah.
And Senator, I guess you agree on this subject?
Well, and I take it judicial selection a little different because I focus on magistrate judges as a senator.
Yeah.
That's a key component. There's 120 family court, circuit court, appellate court, and Supreme Court judges. There's 330 magistrate judges in each county. So right now, the way magistrates are selected are a little different than the other judges. The senator, who has the majority of a Senate district, is able to nominate the magistrate judge to the governor. And as long as that person has a college degree, can pass a background check, and pass an exam, they can be a magistrate judge. You don't need to be an attorney. And I understand that. There's some good magistrate judges. But what I put in place in Florence County that I think we should consider modeling is that more transparency and accountability in who gets nominated. So I have a magistrate screening committee in Florence County with the sheriff, public solicitor, defender, chief magistrate, law enforcement, highway patrol captain. There are 9 members on the committee, members of clergy as well, who ask questions of both the nominees who want to be magistrates as well as the current magistrate judges to ensure that they're going to be conservative, follow the rule of law, and keep criminals off the streets.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. Time is quickly going. I've asked most of my prosecutors this question. We are in Autry County. The Boyd Spivey case has been big around here, and I know that you are in elected office now, and you answer this question to your level of comfort, to what you can with the law, but anything you want to share on that case?
So my office, that case was that was a roadside shooting. There's a stand your ground immunity claim. My office received it about a year and a half ago. Members of my team evaluated it at that time, made a decision that there was an immunity claim was founded. Then there were allegations that the investigative body, the Autry County Police Department, had done things. I'm not saying they did, but they were alleged to have done. And so I made the decision at that time that if we relied on the investigation of the Autry County Police Department and there are issues with that, then we don't need to be investigating those investigators. I sent that investigation to another solicitor in the upstate. And I told that solicitor to investigate that case and make whatever determinations you make, both on the investigation of the roadside shooting as well as the underlying facts of the roadside shooting. At the end of the day, I don't care what the outcome is. I care that justice is served. And I know a lot of people are very strong on both sides of the issue, but at the end of the day, we don't have any friends to reward or enemies to punish. That case is being evaluated by another prosecutor on the other side of the state, someone that no one gets to vote for or against, who has no skin in the game. They're going to make a decision on the criminal side. I know there's a civil trial. That's completely different standards. The criminal side's very different, but that solicitor will make a decision on that case, and we will respect whatever that decision is because I've given it to them.
Good. Thank you for answering.
Yeah.
Another thing that this case has brought up in Autry County, as you well know, Autry County is the only one that has a Autry County Police Department and a Sheriff's Department. What is your opinion on that? Should it all be under the sheriff?
Look, Autry County is the only county in the state of South Carolina where the county sheriff doesn't have general jurisdiction. It's limited to, I think, courthouse and serving warrants and things of that nature. I think the people should be able to elect their chief law enforcement officer that has general, law enforcement authority over the whole county. So I think, and I would like to see Autry County follow the other 45 counties. Are they 45 counties wrong and Autry County right on this one issue? I would submit to the people of Autry County and the councils here that make these decisions that you should empower your sheriff, who is empowered by the people, to be the chief law enforcement officer, and give the powers of the Autry County PD to your sheriff.
I'm honored that y'all both would take the time, so thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Sir.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Autry.
Friends, as we wrap up today, it is important to remember that we are in a primary season. There's a lot of false truths out there, half-truths, and truths. Do your research, know who you're voting for, and get out and let's express our American right. That is to vote, because it does matter. Join us next time.